January 5th, 2021 marked my entry into the non-academic world as a PhD. Prior to that, I was a postdoc, and then I worked for about a year and a half as a community college professor. And I've talked about why I left academia in this video right here, so you can check that out after this video. But I wanted to make this video because when 2023, as I'm filming this, it's January 19th of 2023, which means it's been 2 years since I officially transitioned into a non-academic job. Now, I will say that even when I transitioned into a non-academic job, I did teach for 1 semester because my offer with the non-academic job overlapped with me accepting to teach the following semester. So I could only get out of 1 class, and so I taught 1 class for 1 more semester whilst I was working full-time. It was a lot of work, but we got through it. And in this video, I simply want to share some of my feelings being 2 years out of academia. Usually the common question is, do you miss academia? And I will say that 2 years later, I still do not miss it. I think the thing that I missed the most was the opportunity to teach and impact students' lives. But I realized that even doing the Bold PhD and what I do on LinkedIn, and by the way, if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, you should go follow me on LinkedIn because I post a lot there. I'm still able to teach people. I'm still able to make impact. I still have people writing to me almost every week, sharing with me, how something I shared impacted them and how it helped them, tweak something on their resume and how it helped them go forward and switch careers. So I'm still teaching and I'm still making that impact. It's just not in the classroom. So I think that part of me that is, I'm a teacher at heart. I always say that. So that part of me really is fulfilled by the work that I do with a Bold PhD. And I think apart from that, that's it. That's the only thing I really miss about academia, and I'm getting to fulfill it with what I'm doing with a Bold PhD. And definitely since I've been outside of academia, I have seen a change in my lifestyle, right? So financially, things have definitely changed, right? I definitely enjoy more work-life balance. I remember when I was teaching and I had to grade so many papers. Now, that wasn't the biggest problem. I remember one day I made a post about find out what you like and don't like about, your career, and that can be the thing that helps you decide on what your next step for a career can be. And somebody was in the comments saying, but who is supposed to grade these students' papers? I was saying that I don't really enjoy grading. I didn't really enjoy grading when I was a professor. And so the person was like, it was so interesting because the person said something like, but who is supposed to grade student papers or whatnot? And I'm like, I'm not saying that you I don't know what the person was trying to get at with that comment. And so they were asking me, did you just leave academia because you don't like grading? I'm like, no, me not liking grading is not really the reason I left academia. I left academia for other reasons, but I definitely did not like grading. And I'm yet to meet a professor who tells me they enjoy grading. If you were in academia and you absolutely enjoyed grading papers and grading assignments, let me know in the comments below. I didn't enjoy it. It was part of the job. And I think regardless of what job you do, there's always going to be a part of the job it's a part of the job. You do it, you're not in love with it, but you do it. It doesn't mean that you overall hate the job because of that one thing. Anyway, that was a very, very interesting comment that I had received. And also recently, I had seen people, or a handful of a comment that said, this wasn't on my post, but it was a comment that somebody was referring to, and they were saying that, the people that leave academia, it's because maybe they couldn't get a role in academia or they weren't successful in academia, and that's why they left. And I want to address that a little bit because I think people that's also a very simplistic statement. People are leaving academia at various levels. People leave right after their postdocs. People even just leave after their PhDs and decide they don't want anything to do with an academic job, right? People are leaving at various levels. And then I've also seen people who have gotten tenure at good schools, have a good salary, and have still left. I've heard of people who have been in academia for 10 years, working as temporary staff for 10 years, and were never given tenure. So People are leaving for various reasons and at different levels, and it's not always because the person wasn't rigorous enough, or the person wasn't dedicated enough, or the person didn't love teaching or research, or didn't love whatever into the pursuit of pure intellectual, I don't know, all these big words, right? It's not because of that. Okay, everybody has their reasons. It could be financial. Usually finance is like a big one, but there are also various reasons why somebody may want to leave academia. For me, right, one of the reasons I left was because I was applying, and I wasn't getting responses back, even for jobs that I thought I was very well, maybe even overqualified for. That was one thing. And another thing about academic job applications is they not only ask for your application, sometimes they're asking you for like 3 to 5 references, and sometimes they're asking you for all these, and I'm like, wow, I have to like wrangle all these references and wrangle all these things, and there would be like 10 parts of the application, and you'd look at the salary. And I remember one specific one that set me off was this one job where it was a teaching professor job, and the salary was lower. I think it was almost $10,000 lower than my job as a postdoc. Right, and I live in a very expensive part of the US, and nowadays, like, actually most parts of the US are getting quite expensive, unless you live in the very, very middle of the country. Most places have gotten pricey, so that wasn't going to work. That just was not going to work. And I think that's what really triggered me and set me off on this path of going to look for another career outside of academia, because academia was just not doing it for me, right? So people are leaving at various levels, and they're not leaving because they were not quote unquote successful or in academia, right? That's usually not the case, right? And even if they were not successful, let's ask ourselves why they were not successful. Were they not successful because somehow the systems that have been built around this whole academic ivory tower thing did not support what they needed? Were they not successful because they've been applying and they've put in 100 applications and nobody is paying attention to them? Or let's talk about the fact that they were not successful because they've written so many papers, and because academia is such a publish or perish kind of environment, maybe they've been running experiments and they haven't been working, and because of that they haven't pushed out papers as often as they could. Or maybe they are pushing out papers, but for some reason they're not being given tenure. Like, there's so many reasons. So for those of you that are academics and are like lifelong academics and like look down your noses on those of us that leave, sometimes I would encourage you, to question why you feel that way. I remember one day I was responding to somebody's comment, and they were like, yeah, I used to think like that. I used to think that people who left academia were sellouts. And I'm like, wow, I'm glad that they admitted to that, but this is a pervading thought process. And a sellout to what though? A sellout to what? The fact that people want to be able to afford a good life and be able to afford life, not even afford a good life, just afford the basics. I'm telling you, when I was leaving academia, I just wanted to be able to afford the basics. That's it. I wasn't even trying to become the next millionaire, right? What's so wrong with that, right? We would rather people pay with their mental and emotional strength, right, and sacrifice the money. And if you can sacrifice the money because you don't really need money, that's okay. And I remember I've said that many times, but that's not for everyone, and that's okay. So anyway, obviously I have really strong feelings around this, but this is how, 2 years out of leaving academia, this is how I feel. I feel good. I'm still happy I made that decision to leave academia. Maybe one day I will go back as an adjunct professor. I think I want to do that, but not because I'm necessarily looking to make a career change, but because of like some part of me that I want to fulfill. Maybe I want to learn something new. Maybe I want to just challenge myself. I might do that. But for now, being outside of academia has just been a complete blessing for me and my family. And if you're thinking about doing it, I highly recommend it. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.